good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Baisden. Joining me is co-host Jason Juggling J. Ford. And this evening we start off with members of the Bermuda Karting Club's executive committee. Jay, they had a successful season, completed a season. We all know the challenges at the beginning of their season and towards the end of their last season with that 5-letter word and that 19. It's been a struggle for many sports, but just to see the perseverance of a sport like karting go through an entire season this time around with some, and we'll find out later, with some creative work done to ensure that they followed all the guidelines that were put in place by the government and to get their sport through a race day. So we've spoken with Scott before. We've spoken with Jeff before. What are some of the things you're looking forward to finding out tonight?
Well, tonight is, I don't want to dwell too much on the past because the past is the past. It's always good to learn from it, but what are we going forward with? I know COVID has taught us many lessons. Hopefully, a lot of organizations have used that time to reorganize and help themselves more structured. I've heard a lot of organizations say, we took a lot more time in getting things right behind the scenes. So when it came to race day or it came to game day, we was more organized. So different things. I wanted to see some of the things that they may have learned through COVID, because now it gave them a time to step back from the actual on the track and see what they have learned off the track to help on the track going forward. So those are some of the things that I would love to know from these two experienced drivers here.
Sure. Well, first of all, again, welcome Scott Barnes and Jeff Souza. Scott, at the beginning of the season, things weren't all rosy as far as the COVID restrictions. So what was one of the things that you guys sat down and decided to do to ensure that you can have a complete race day each week or each time there was going to be a race day?
Yeah, well, our season started off with COVID restrictions again, and government's guidelines and numbers of how many people can gather and stuff. And it was like, all right, here we go again. We're right back to last season. But I got together with Jeff and the committee, and look, we're going racing. We're going to do it safely. We're going to follow government's guidelines, but we're going racing. And we, whatever the numbers were, we rolled with it. If we had 25 people, 50 people, that's what the numbers were, and that's what we had to do. If we had to split the days 2-3 times sometimes into 2-3 groups, that's what we had to do. And luckily, we were able to get our whole season in, never missed a race day, 15 race days, never missed one, and did it safely too. No one, spread COVID anywhere. We did it. We wore a mask. We kept the distance. We did everything we were supposed to with testing. At some points, we had to test at the track first thing in the morning. It was a long season, but it was good, and not too many sports in Bermuda can say they did their whole season without missing anything due to COVID, and luckily we were able to get that done.
So, and Jeff, working with Scott and putting together a race season, looking at it now, looking back at it, how would you sum up everything that you guys as administrators and as drivers had to go through to accomplish this feat of finishing a season?
A lot of patience. I would say that was our main thing with it. Thanks to our members that kind of understood what we were up against. Like Scott said, we were even tested at the track, so they knew to come earlier because it was a line. And you had to do your test and then have it there and wait, 10, 15, I think it was like 15 minutes, 12, 15 minutes to see what the result was. And then you go through the line and someone else. We were actually like going down the line and getting people starting to test so that we could kind of catch up. But if I could sum it up with one word for this season, was patience. You know what I mean? Like I said, our membership knew what we were up against. But coming together, understanding how to do this, like Scott said, with whatever numbers that the government guidelines gave us. How do we do this? This is how we can get it done. And we got it done. And I mean, overall, up and down the pit road, it was pretty much, how can I say, everyone agreed that with what we were doing was working. It kept us all safe. It was kind of easy for us in a sense because, like I said, like we were saying earlier on, we got the full face helmets on. We got the gloves and the suit and the shoes, and some of us wear like a balaclava, which is like a head sock. So you kind of were protected. I mean, if you took your helmet off, guys had their masks there, or their pit crew would give them a mask because we have a scaling area where they weigh in and they would mask up if needed to. We also had our cones laid out so you knew to keep that 6-foot distance away from your competitors. So yeah, I want to say that we kind of got lucky in a sense that we were able to pull off the whole season, man. It was an awesome achievement for sure.
I'm gonna come back to you, Scott, and ask a question that relevant to what Jason said he wanted to hear. But what are some of the things you guys as a committee learned throughout this whole process, and that you could implement to make your season that much more simplified next season?
I think two things. Like, to echo what Jeff said, patience, because you're running the club as the committee, and you have to do what's best for the club and for everyone in general. But not everyone's going to agree with that, right? So we as the committee have to push what we think is best for the majority and the club as a whole. But you get a lot of feedback from some members, and you got to be patient with everyone. And the other thing is teamwork. You have to have a strong, full committee behind you to run a club, any club, any sport. So luckily, me, myself, and Jeff as the president and vice president, we have a full team behind us. We have a full committee that's doing a lot of work behind the scenes to help us out and help to push the club forward. So without that full committee, we just couldn't do it. So yeah, patience and teamwork, I think, are the biggest two things.
Okay.
So I just want to piggyback on that same question and the same information. So we've heard from many organizations, take for instance, using technology, just a case StreamYard or even Zoom, what Zoom has done for a lot of these organizations over COVID, whereas many times when you had to call for a meeting and try to get everybody at one particular place, now it's just give you this link and everybody's on, and found out that a lot more groups was able to speak more regularly and not have that extra time of transportation or this, that, and the other to get to and fro. Anything technical that we've learned over COVID, especially you, Scott, because obviously we've been following you, obviously traveling overseas and racing, following how they was able to do it because other places had COVID too. Was anything technical that you brought back to Bermuda and implemented within the karting club?
No, I think just like you said, the Zoom, our committee meetings normally without COVID, we would meet at least once a month, maybe twice a month to discuss things. And, not being able to do that with COVID, we picked up on the Zoom. Before COVID, what the hell is a Zoom meeting? But then there was a meeting where I was in Florida racing, and we Zoomed in, the whole committee Zoomed in, and we had our committee meeting like that. So you still had to run the club, you still had to get things done. You weren't able to physically meet, so let's Zoom it and let's keep rolling and let's keep going. So yeah, it's funny because even after the restrictions eased up, most of the committee was like, "Hey, can we just keep Zooming? It's a lot easier."
I was just going to ask you that if this is one of these that, because some clubs were saying, you know what, this might be easy. We might need to keep this going, right?
Sure. From my couch.
I like to get a drink and shoot the shit with everyone, but everyone's like, "Nah, we'll just keep Zooming." I'm like, "All right, cool, whatever you guys want."
Sure.
But yeah,
Jeff,
the thing needs to get done when you're running a club. So yeah, you can't just stop. You got to keep going.
Yeah. So Jeff, I've seen you instrumental in a lot of stuff of organizing race days and making sure that races run on time. Even sometimes you coming off that scaffolding, getting into a cart, and then getting back up there, kind of thing. But when you're putting together a race week or race day, how important is it for the drivers to understand that time management is the key for a race day? Because I can recall a few times where rain was approaching for the afternoon and you were trying to get, or the drivers were, just trying to get the races as quickly done as possible, having everybody staged right at the time to go out. But how important is it for the community to communicate with the drivers to ensure that they understand that the importance of timing each and every race day?
Well, again, I guess we're lucky. Most of everybody, besides like our juniors that are coming through, understand how important time is. Even to our flaggers that flag the corners, because it changes every heat.
Yes.
You might have that are racing in the shifter race, they're going to be flagging for the kids, and then that transition over, they understand that there is like a certain time limit that we only have to be able to pull off the whole race day. A thing, I guess, like what Jason was saying, what we learned with COVID, when we split the day, we were able to get the day done like so fast. It was unbelievable because people were in that routine. You had 10, 15 minutes, or if somebody needed extra time to get their cart ready, up and running to go into the next heat. So what it did is once the restrictions started to open up, us coming all back together again, we were already used to this time thing of getting it done because you got to go because another whole group is coming in, right? It kind of just rippled effect into a regular race day. And there was a few race days where, we were kind of like at the end of the race day saying, wow, we could have done a whole nother heat because people were so used to that routine of time, like what you were saying, and how imperative it was. I guess we just got lucky with our membership that kind of already understood the drill, if you could say, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I witnessed it, so I totally understand what you're saying. Jake?
Was there anything prior to COVID that you was about to implement into the race series that you was unable to do due to COVID and you're looking to implement in the future?
I think
street race.
two things.
No, I was getting there, right?
Yes, sir.
Right off the bat, last season we started our junior rental program. We didn't have a junior class for 2 years because all the kids kind of stepped up into the senior classes. So the smallest junior class kind of fell by the wayside for 2 years. So we kind of wanted to get that back. So the club bought carts last season for rental carts for new kids that want to come to the sport, and started the ball rolling last. And then obviously the restrictions hit and slowed everything down. We weren't able to advertise and bring new kids in. So at the beginning of this season, we kind of started that ball rolling again and got a bunch of new kids into the sport. So that's one thing for next season. We want to push even more, getting more kids involved because, that's the future of the club. Without a youth program, any sport dies, right? So that's the biggest thing that's important to us is getting more kids involved into the sport. And then, what Jeff said was a street race. We want to go street racing again bad. And before COVID, we were in talks with Corporation Hamilton. We had a lot of plans pushing for a street race. And then COVID kind of just slapped that in the face and stopped that. So now that we're back open and things are rolling again, a street race is definitely what we're looking at for next season.
Hey, new asphalt, Front Street, new asphalt.
If it'll be Front Street, we're really looking at that northeast Hamilton, towards
Yes.
the background, Court Street,
Yes.
Princess Street area.
Yes.
I think that has potential to be huge. Could bring some international drivers down, something different, something that we've never done. We just need sponsors now. That's the biggest thing. That costs us upwards of $50,000 to put on. So the biggest thing is finding sponsors to have that, and it is our goal to. I don't know when next season, but hopefully next season to go back to street racing. It's been, 2017 I think was our last one.
Yeah, about 5 years. Yeah,
It's been a few years, so we're chomping at the bit to go back to street racing.
sure. But we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more with Jeff Souza and Scott Barnes, Bermuda Karting Club. We'll be right back.
featuring a range of remarkably effective household cleaning solutions made with ecologically sound ingredients and pleasing fragrances from Ecos, a company with over 50 years' experience producing plant-powered cleaning products. The founder was a veteran chemist in the cleaning products industry and started up Ecos as a response to the harsh chemicals he had routinely encountered. Try Ecos non-abrasive cream cleanser, vinegar window cleaner, and in spray bottles, Orange Plus and Parsley Plus cleaners, shower and floor cleaners, furniture polish, and stain and odor remover. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
And welcome back. Scott dropped out, but I'll bring him back. Welcome back, Scott. All right, so we talk about the youth program, Scott, especially with the rental cards. They're not just for the youth, are they? They're for anyone that wants to try and see what it's like and experience going around a track.
So our junior rental program, the race carts that we have are actually just for juniors age 6 to 12. We do have a member, David Barboza, that has Arrive and Drive adult race carts in the 206 class, which is the stock motor 4-stroke class, which is one of the biggest classes. So he actually has race-ready rental carts that you just show up, pay a fee, and he does all the work. You actually race with us. And then he actually has fun rentals for anyone new that's trying to get into the sport, wants to try it out, or just have some fun. But the club's race-ready rental carts are junior carts, age 6 to 12.
Okay, that leaves you and I out, Jay. We're straight. We'll watch.
Oh yeah.
I know, but I mean, anyone new trying to get into the sport, come hit us up. There's plenty of carts out there for sale, and like I said, we have a member that has the race-ready rental carts. For people that want to get into the sport, we're always looking for new people. That's one thing we're trying to grow. We're trying to get new people into the sport. It's a fun sport. So yeah, anyone that wants to come check us out.
But you mentioned for sale. I see the legendary number 9's up. Has it gone yet?
I sold one last year. I sold my tag. My shifter is still for sale. Fast cart, 3 championships. But yeah, I do more racing overseas these days, and kind of just trying to run the club here. And we adopted a couple of junior kids this year that we're helping out, and so concentrating on trying to get the junior program up and running and helping out the kids is my goal right now.
Sure. Jay?
All right, so I've got a few questions is in my mind right now. First thing first, you had mentioned. Okay, let's go back a bit. You had mentioned about sponsorship, right? And I'm just thinking outside of the box because I'm going back to. I know if you guys were familiar when David Bascom started the ISL league here, the football league here on the island, and obviously it was just starting out, but it was able to make a partnership with Fox to come down here and televise the what was it, the finals, or what was it?
Final, yeah.
The
All-Star game.
All-Star game. Is there something like that in the works where networking with a foreign entity to come and film it and show it on one of the speed channels as a partnership? Because when you're looking at sponsorship, the biggest thing they want is exposure, right? So not only getting local exposure, but getting international exposure. Is that something that you guys are even dabbling around with that idea?
Nothing's off the table. Trust me, my brain's always going on how we can get sponsors and how we can get money in. And luckily I have a lot of connections overseas because I've been racing out there so long. I know we can get international drivers down here for a street race. That's not a problem. I know we can get it live streamed. How big we can make it to make money off of it, that's another question. I'll definitely hit you up on the side to get some more information because that's the first time I'm hearing about Fox. So yeah, any information you can give us, we'll
And
definitely
I
take
say
it.
that Earl will have more information because I know that's one of the things that the BTA was been pushing was sports tourism, right? So that is a lot of. I mean, that's something that can be told. Have a conversation with them and see how that can make that work because they've had a part of that with a few of the well, whether it's been rugby, whether it's been the sailing. We just saw the SailGP. They've worked along with a foreign entity to come down and film it or broadcast it live, and now you see the benefits not only for them but also for us locally.
Mhm.
The question I had was like with the ISL, that wasn't just local, was it? Didn't the teams go abroad? It
Just
was
local.
No, it was all local.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was an all-star match. Yeah.
All local players.
Most of the times that you see worldwide for karting are like really big national events. So that's what you'll see, like televised, where sponsors will jump on, they get exposure, stuff like that. For us, again, it would have to be something like what you said, a network or somebody that would be interested in showing a grassroots club in the beautiful island of Bermuda, and then go from there. You know what I mean? Because really, we're only at a, how can I say it? We're only at a national level, right? Not an international level.
Right.
But like Scott said, nothing's ever off the table. You know what I mean? It's just trying to get that attraction. I mean, we do have a few local companies came on this year for our safety barriers. We had to get new covers for our barriers down the track. They've been weathered for 10 plus years. So we did have some companies come on board to help us with the cost of the covers, and then their logo goes on the cover so that they have, some advertisement for their, that them helping us out with getting the covers, something like that. But like Scott said, man, I mean, hey, if anybody would come down and film us going around the track down there, beautiful Southside St. David's, I mean, what other place where the water is right there next to the track? I mean, you can have your wives at the beach suntanning and the guys are racing go-karts.
Bouncing between the bears. Yeah.
Also, I want to go back a bit. Because my father used to drive many moons ago. I was a little whippersnapper, and the likes of David Johnson at the time was one of the hottest drivers. Him and Andy Sternum used to have these races out of the world, whether they were racing up at the Annex, which was one of the main areas at the time, whether they were racing down at National Sports Club, where Summersfield is now. They used to put the knobbies on and have the grass, I want to say it may have been even Shelley Bay, but I know those, and down at the base at front gate. But majority of the time it was up at the Naval Annex. Have you had any interest or reached out to some of those older drivers to come back and just have a little fun day with some of those old drivers? Put them in a car and see what they can do with this new technology?
Yeah, we actually a couple of seasons ago we actually had Duke Soares. I'm sure you guys have heard the name before. He's the founder of the Bermuda Karting Club back in 1976 was when the karting club was started. We actually got him down the track. He's a little bit, he can't get into a kart. He's got some helmet stuff, but he was back down the track a couple of years ago and came down for a race day, and his family actually sponsored a trophy day. And to see him down there and enjoying it, man, that was cool to see. And a lot of our drivers that used to race, like when I started racing, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they're starting to come back out and drive again. We just had a driver join our last race day that hasn't been out in probably 8 years. Yeah. Back out. We haven't had what you said, reaching out to the old timers, but they're always welcome down there. It's always good to see the founding members and drivers out there come back and take an interest in the sport. If we have a street race, that's definitely something we can look at doing is getting the old timers out there and being involved at the street race somehow.
Yeah, put them in a stock. Hey, slow it down for them, Case.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. DJ has been down to the track over a couple of years before COVID. Also, a few other drivers. Sternum comes down from time to time. Ray Medeiros has been down there. We definitely see some older members coming back. I've been trying to twist their arms, Jay, to try to get them at least in a 206, that's a sealed stock 4-stroke, doesn't go too fast, and for them to come on out, I'm trying to twist their arms, man. But these older veterans, it's tough to get them out there, you know what I mean? But they do come down. They do come down and support the club, and that's what it's all about. Is that we try to hold on to the old lineage. And then, the new members coming in, we're trying to, keep that torch going.
Yeah. And not to get off subject, speaking of motorsports and the old timers, and I think it was 3 years ago we came together with the other three motorsports in Bermuda, powerboats, motocross, and the bikes, and actually started a Bermuda Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And we did first round of inductees, I think was 3 years ago, and then COVID shut it down. And we're actually in the works right now with going through with the second round of inductees later on this year. So, honoring the people from the past that got the sports going and dominated in their respected motorsports in Bermuda. It's pretty cool to be a part of that, and to, give homage to these older cats that paved the way.
Well, before we wrap up, Scott, can you sum up the season? I know you had division winners. You had
yeah. It was a long season. We actually did the last 2 seasons. We've done something a little bit different. Instead of running one long 15 race championship, we did 2 championships. So we had a national series points championship, and then we had a trophy day championship. So the national series this year was 10 race days, and the trophy day was 5 race days. Your champions for the national series in the cadet class was Jonah Monis in our junior cadet program, and tags was Blake Horseman. Blake actually won the national and the trophy series. Jonah won the national and the trophy series. In the shifter class, Ryan Rebello won the national series, and it was really close between him and Brandon Franks in the trophy series. Brandon actually didn't show up the last race day, so it went to Ryan Rebello again, the trophy series. And then in the LO 206 senior class, Jason North won the national series, and myself won the trophy series. So those are the champions across the both series.
all right. Well,
Hold up, bro. 'Cause that all sounds nice, but as a racehead, as somebody like speed, who's got the fastest car down there? What's his speed? What numbers are we talking about? I don't want to hear no time, a minute something. Well, who's got how fast is the fast, and who's got it?
well,
I mean,
let me just say.
Look at it. Everybody's making a face now. I want to hear it.
Always win.
I'm not worried about that right now. That person probably can't drive either, right? I don't care about that.
our fastest class is obviously the shifter class. And Ryan Rebello took the championship this year, but he had a lot of competition. Brandon Franks came back out. He hasn't been out in a couple of years, and he was really fast. He actually won, I think, 4 out of the 5 trophy days that he came out. So he was pretty dominant when he came out. And then you got the young drivers in Ryan Burgess, Georgia Thomas, Jazad James, his second year in a shifter, getting faster and faster. But, it may be our slowest class, but our most seasoned veteran driver class has been the 206 4-stroke class. I mean, I think this.
Jeff's in that class, ain't he? Jeff, you're in that class, right, Jeff? Right, that's right. So
Jeff,
I understand.
Jeff's been in as a past champion. Dave Barboza as a past champion. Jason North as a past champion. Myself as a past champion. You got Justin Lindo and Ryan Lindo and a bunch of other fast guys. So I mean, and that's a class where one little mistake cost you 5, 6, 7 positions. You don't have the power like a shifter to bail you out of your mistakes. So it's more of a driver's class. But myself, I'm a shifter driver. I haven't raced shifter in the last 2 years. But that's
so what's the speed difference? What's the highest speed you can go in a shifter on that track? I know you guys had a radar down there compared to the 206 class.
On this track, on our longest layout, I think the shifters are getting like low 80s. I think where the 206s are probably getting somewhere in the low 60s. So there's quite a bit of a speed difference. Obviously, you can shift 206, but driving wise, they both have their ups and downs, but the 206, like I said, you can't bail yourself out of a mistake with the power like you can in the shifter.
Yeah, 206 class is finesse. You know what I mean? You really can't muscle it around. You got to really finesse the cart through using that low horsepower 4-stroke. Whereas like what Scott said with the high horsepower 2-strokes, you can pull it out. But we've had some really great races this season. With like what Scott was saying with Flying Ryan Burgess, one of our young kids came from cadet class, tag junior, went to tag, went to shifter. He's worked his way up through our club's, how our club is, our structure, and really turning it on like halfway through the season. He really started to apply some pressure to Ryan Rebello. Another one of their teammates, Steven Corrado, another one up there in the shifter class. I mean, to watch these guys race and run, was really spectacular to watch. Going back to what Scott was saying with the 206s, Scuzzy, Skitchy, David Barbosa, Mark Tucker, myself, Ryan Lindo, Justin unfortunately had some mishap at the beginning of the season, but in that 206 running nose to tail. And then again, the CRGs found something halfway through the season, and then they just started clicking. It was a really great season to watch. In our cadet program, you had Roman Wilkinson, who had just come in there as a rental, and you can see the progression going through and watching this young gentleman just, the wheels starting to click on. It started to switch. Saya Pedro, another one of our kids in the junior program, switching right on. So it was a lot of racing, exciting to watch throughout the whole thing. Again, can't take nothing away from Blake Horseman. Excellent driver. Another one of our juniors came up through the ranks as a young kid. Really dominated the tag class. But there was still great hooks within the tag class. Some of our kids, Nathan DaCosta, Jaden Brimmer, Niall Bean, these kids came up from our cadets and tag juniors and racing in tag senior class. So really was really great to watch the racing this season. It always is. I'm a race head, right? But really something. If I always say it, I always promote it. Bermuda has a huge history entrenched in motorsports. I was kind of thinking back. I know you guys do the interview, but if I could put a question maybe out to you that you guys could talk about, but how come a lot of the companies in Bermuda don't support motorsports as much as they do a lot of other sports? I understand exposure and stuff like that, but when we're talking about it at a national level, just here locally, we find that with motorsports, all motorsports, we struggle a little bit with some of the support that we could possibly get like other sports do. And I wonder why when Bermuda has such a rich history of motorsports. Just to touch on, not to ramble on, but like what Scott said with Hall of Fame. When we first had that Hall of Fame, I didn't know guys were taking motocross bikes and running it down across from Rangers, down Kilimanjaro. I had no idea. I thought all those trails were for horses. I had no idea. So with that Hall of Fame came people that were inducted. I can't remember the gentleman's name in the bike side of it and the motocross. And you got to learn history, how this all. I said it on the radio before. Everybody used to go down PHC and BAA, like Jason's talked about in nationals, under the lights on a Friday night and run bikes and go karts in the dirt. Where is that now? Now, if we ask for a night race, we can't, or there's some other restriction. I don't understand. There's so much talent. Here locally for motorsports that guys like Scott, other go-karters, Brandon Franks, Scuzzy, gone away and done so well. We just had Aiden Simmons go to the UK and completely dominate those kids over there. He never raced the track over there. It's stuff like that I find that there's so much talent in this motorsports community that, to go overseas, you know what I mean? I wish there was a lot more support locally.
Yeah.
Thanks to Rubus, you know what I mean, for jumping on board with us over the years, helping us out with our safety equipment and helping us with junior program. It's I just always wonder why. Maybe that's something you guys can talk about with yourself, you and Juggler.
That's definitely another show. I can tell you. It's a lot of layers to that.
Just to get that up, man.
If you guys look back in the day, right? Look at powerboats. Look at what Fairy Reach used to look like. I know we don't do it no more in sports, but with Marlboro and Miss Carlsberg and Metro Soda was Pepsi and Vision Video, and you had all these businesses. You know what I mean? Companies that were jumped on board. What happened to our motorsports? It's something that us as Bermudians we love. You know what I mean?
Definitely, that'll be a topic we will discuss, and maybe we can have you guys come on and express some of the integral part, because I think a lot of people are missing just that, what it takes to have a card, what it takes for a race day, what it takes for, you know what I mean, what it takes for a season, those type of things that people just see or hear about you guys racing, but don't know what it takes, the ins and outs. And I think having an opportunity to share that will probably be the best way moving forward for your sport to start. Just before we go, Scott, when is the season due to start again?
September 11th, I think, is actually the first race day. So yeah, short break through the summer. The committee's in full swing. We got an AGM next month. Then the committee will be in full swing, planning everything, getting everything organized to kick off another season. Just to wrap up, I think this year we had 42 carts take to the track. We had new juniors. We had new drivers in every class across the board. So the club is growing. There's a bunch of carts sold at the end of the season. So we're getting new people in. The club's definitely growing. So we're going in the right direction, and we look forward to keeping that momentum and getting that momentum come September. Like I said, anyone that's interested in getting in the sport from 6 years old all the way up to 60 plus years old, we have a spot for you. So, hit us up. And like you said, we can tell you and show you and help you get a card, get involved. The club's very friendly and willing to help new people out to get involved. So yeah, if you have an interest in racing, hit us up, come down, check us out. It's a fun sport and great sport to get into.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mark Clark. We'll be right back.
Thanks, guys.
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Back in 1995, a pair of entrepreneurs working in their garage with essential oils began to realize the potential of organically produced body care products. Now, in a 56,000 square foot facility, EO products are shipping to millions worldwide, an inspiration to aspiring family businesses to be sure. EO products were the first in their field to follow the quality and safety guidelines established for organic foods in their production of high-end organic body care products. This month we're featuring EO Lemon Coconut Lotion. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back, and we welcome Mark Clark. Mark played an integral part of the event that took place this past weekend, Jay and SailGP. He's one of the most reliable sailing, historian, if I can. When it comes to information regarding sailing in and around the island. But Mark, we wanted to bring you on to talk about the SailGP itself. I mean, we all saw what it has done over the last few years. It brings light to the island. Just give us an overview of the entire weekend of what people saw or did not see, whether they watched or didn't watch.
Well, let's start with the harbor. The SailGP block party that we started off on Thursday was supposed to be Wednesday, but typical Bermuda, rather showed up when it wanted to, said, nope, not Wednesday, has to be Thursday. And, those who attended, and we reckon it was about 1,500 to 2,000 that attended Front Street on Thursday, would have seen what could be described as almost a history of sail. We actually had the Spirit of Bermuda alongside dock for people to look at. We actually had the fitted dinghy, the Comet class. We couldn't get the IOD because of the weather and because of its size, but we also had the Wasp, we had the Optimus Pram. And forgot to say, we had the Powerboat class, the S-28 Skater, as well as the junior class that they've only just developed. I think it was last year they introduced it to Bermuda.
Yeah, they reintroduced it. Yeah, they had a junior class some years ago, but yeah.
Right. So, and also the Canadian SailGP team took over the front yard and was scheduled to introduce the Canadian boat, the F-50, to Bermuda. And it was a phenomenal event. I mean, you had the vendors show up, you had the restaurant show up, and Bermuda showed up. Now, what happened even starting there is you actually had young people who were interested in sailing. You had young people who were buzzing around the powerboats. And it was unique to see because I think that this year you will probably see more people sign their kids up to sailing. More people come out to the sailing events. And I think that all of that starts with SailGP and the relationship with the BTA and hosted by Hamilton Princess, but allowing the relationship of BTA and SailGP where we can speak about our deep maritime history. And that is something that many people I'm finding out weren't really aware of, which was kind of amazing in itself. I know from a family perspective and a class perspective that many people don't know the import of, say, sailing and Bermuda. So when we talk about SailGP, we talk about the Bermuda rig. That is a triangle sail rig that everybody sees on every racing boat. But that was something that Bermudian. It's Bermudian through and through. We invented that. And then the F-50. The F-50, when it was first conceptualized for AC-35, a Bermudian was integral in designing that boat. So one could easily make the argument that the F-50 and SailGP is as Bermudian gets, and everybody in the world sees it. Okay. That is us punching above our weight class. So what didn't people see on Saturday. Well, those who watched, my Liverpool team win against Chelsea, I have to be shameless in that. But those who watched the football game as opposed to the race missed out on a season opener that was comparable to probably Formula One. There's no faster boat as far as racing class in the world on the water that does not have an engine attached to it, powered by wind, in probably the best amphitheater in the world, the Great Song. And then Sunday we showed up again, and then the weather, gave us blue skies. You notice how it gave us blue skies? We raced. The wind was up, but the boats were consistent, cleaner, great racing. And then after the racing, the blue skies closed up and said, well, let's cool it down a bit. People would have missed that on Cross Island. They would have missed seeing the boats coming in, going out. They would have missed the finish line. I mean, I know that you was out there on the water, Earl, right in front of the finish line, taking your pictures. And to see them, it just looked like a bird just coming down at you at speed. I don't know. I geek out when it comes to sailing. Whether it's an Optimus Pram, whether it's a Comet, Comet is just my natural love. But, sailing, period. But when you see that level of talent, you're seeing rock stars on the water that are actually the pilots at SailGP. They are the pilots of each of those boats. And you just can't help, you can't get that close to Hamilton in Formula One. You can't get that close to any sports star. But with SailGP, they're right there on the water. You hear, you don't hear, I still amazed by the sound that it makes with the whistling sound. That is just, it's the most eerie sound that you can hear, because that's pure speed.
I'm glad you mentioned Hamilton, because and then you were referring to Lewis Hamilton, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So SailGP, they're in the third season. When will we see a Lewis Hamilton in SailGP?
We actually already have seen it. I mean, you got Peter Berlin, twice champion in the America's Cup. You have Tom Slingsby dominating in SailGP season 1 and 2. You already have Jimmy Spittle, multiple America's Cup champion, as well as world champion. Sir Ben Ainsley, the winningest sailor in history. Ironically, he won his first world championship in Bermuda at the age of 16 in the laser class. Every one of those sailors, every one of those skippers have world-class pedigree, and including Sir Russell Coutts.
I was referring to
See, Mark, we're over Martinez now.
When will we see a Lewis Hamilton? You mean like a 7-time world champion?
No, when will we see somebody of color? Because to be honest, I mean, if we look at anybody on the fence looking at not only SailGP, but you could also go back as far as the America's Cup and some of these new exciting races. It takes you back to what the perception, I'm not saying it's reality, but the perception of sailing has been over the years.
Well, good question. Didn't think you was going to get into it so early, but let's go there. Let's go there. So we have Rudy Bailey, Stevie Dickinson. Between the two of them, 14 internationals in the comic class. 14. Not 1, not 2, not even 7 that Sir Lewis has. 14 between the two of them. So if let's say Bermuda, let's punch above our weight. If we actually had a national program supported in the schools and the community with a world-class coach, what stops the future Stevie Dickinsons and Rudy Baileys from actually building? So look at SailGP and look at America's Cup, the AC-35. What came out of that? What came out of that is Mustafa Ingham, Trey Maxwell, Mustafa is actually racing around the world in Australia on yachts, playing rugby by day, let's call it, and sailing, racing. Trey Maxwell, who's come up through the Endeavor program on the AC-35, stayed with Endeavor, did the Inspire program on the SailGP. He is now fully employed by Team USA under Jamie Spittle. Is he still sailing? Yes, he's still sailing. Yes, he's still working. So he's studying. You actually have, as we speak now, and a Bermuda team that are scheduled to start racing on Thursday in Switzerland in the Star Sailing League, a complete Bermuda team, led by Raquel Evans, who is the grandson of Howard Lee, whom is the first black Olympic sailor in the world, and he's Bermudian. So it is not to say that we're not going to see. I think it's a question of time. The number one sailor, and if I'd have known that question was going to ask, I would have remembered her name and reinforced it. But she is, she's black. She's a black female sailor, laser class. She is going to the Olympics in 2024. She is training with the Olympic team. She has been a world champion in the female class. She, so that, and her brother both started, whilst they're Canadian, they started learning to sail, and I want to say it was the Cayman Islands. You actually have.
You're talking about Paige. Paige Rayleigh.
That name does not sound familiar, but if you said it, I would say, yep, that's her. But she actually comes to Bermuda also. It's her fiance, if not boyfriend, actually works here and actually sails here. And so what I'm saying is that if we were to say how many blacks are in sailing, as opposed to when will they get into the professional leagues, it's two different answers. It's two different answers. We are definitely on our way. Just like how we turned and pivoted towards golf, basketball, American football, fishing and other sports that historically were not accessible. But when we look at Bermuda, Bermuda actually has 3 black sailboat clubs. We even have a black fishing club. Out of the 10 maritime clubs in this island, 21 square miles, 40% are, let's call it black. But then you got the Powerboat Association. That is a diverse organization. And then we have the other clubs, the Royal Bermudas, the Royal Hamiltons, Spanish Points, the Sandys, St. George's Dinghy. Am I missing somebody? I don't think I'm missing anybody. But they are all the potentials that say that as we grow and mature, we will move that direction. Dare I say, now is when I mention Nicole Stubble, who is the junior national champion female in England. I have to also mention Sebastian Kemp, who's also the junior. So the first time and ever in the entire of the British national colonial system, Commonwealth system, the national champions for juniors are 2 Bermudians. Under 18, Sebastian Kemp and Nicole Stubble, who were not trained overseas, they were trained and nurtured locally. So where would they go? Sebastian just won the Laser Juniors in Qatar earlier this year. I think I'm right in saying earlier this year. And what is his trajectory? What are their trajectory going into the Olympics? And how does that trajectory take them into the professional world of sailing? I think we can say, let's watch this space, because it's simply not enough to say, well, when are we going to see a Lewis Hamilton? Because they are all over the world. I mean, I just came out of Antigua 2 weeks ago for the Antigua Race Week, and there were entire black crews racing. They have a viable junior program. Was a couple. It was a family from out of Trinidad racing, and dreads and all, so to speak, right? So it's one of those things that we just have to look at on Wednesday night, to see the diversity. But I think what we really have to ask our question is, when, not if. One of the most sickening things I hear people saying is that it's a white elite sport. And I want the next time someone says that to you, challenge them and say why. Because yesterday is not today when it comes to locally. Some of my friends will disagree with what I'm going to say right now, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. If it didn't happen to you or your family, if it didn't happen to your friends, please don't bring it to the narrative when talking about Bermuda. Because we're different. I really think we're different. I mean, even during segregation, we had 3 black-owned clubs. In fact, we had 4. One ended up being one migrated into being a football club. I bet you don't know that stat. But you would be surprised because they have had done more than their share of first division wins and leagues, multiple cups. All, I think they've been Triple Crown champion. So it is a story of us when it comes to sailing. More in particular, sailing was here before football or cricket by over 100 years. Racing. So it's one of those ones where I recently challenged somebody last week when they came at me with that nonsense. They said, well, how did it impact you? Well, those white clubs. Well, okay, what did those white clubs do to you? And that's where they ran out of excuses. Because we have 3 black community clubs that I said, well, when's the last time you was at them? When's the last time you even went there to have a drink, let alone support a race? And your name says that genetically you should be there. They had nothing to say to that question. And that's what I want people to do. Challenge the narrative.
All right. Let's take a quick commercial break and then we come back. Hey, you're up.
Every month is snack month for us, it would seem, as long as they're the healthful, guilt-free, delectable snacks we crave. Enter the Daily Crave, a company whose first product was churros, the well-loved Spanish treat, followed by diversification in the form of classic puffed snacks and chips. They ventured beyond the traditional list of ingredients. The grains are gone, replaced by lentils, pulses, and cassava, slaking our craving with a vegan-friendly, gluten-free snack that satisfies. This month we're featuring the Daily Crave Quinoa Bourbon Barbecue Chips. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Welcome back. Jay, you have a question?
So, Mark, it's definitely refreshing to hear somebody speak of sailing with the knowledge that you have, especially historic knowledge that you have. And I appreciate whatever you've done in the past to obtain this knowledge. I would say I appreciate you because it's definitely refreshing and changing the narrative. So I want to just go back on something because one thing Earl and I have tried to do over the last probably umpteen years is change the narrative of a lot of sports, is us telling our story. A lot of times we allow someone else to tell that story. And we know what happens when you tell a story and then it goes to the next person. By the time it gets to the 10th person, that story is a little bit different, right?
Yep.
So I'm going back because I want to go back because some of our families, sometimes we fail to realize that some of our families came to this island via boat, via the salt trade back in the day, and the historic side of it, even through sailing. How much are we dropping the ball in actually telling our stories at each individual club and then overall as a community to letting our young people know the historic essence of what some of our families are ingrained in. Some families are definitely ingrained in sailing from, the fathers, the grandfathers, the great grandfathers. How are we dropping the ball is getting that information to our young people?
A damn good question. It's so. Give you an example. Earl, everybody knows as a footballer. Not many people know that he was a sailor.
Mm-hmm. Wow, he's a fall out of the boat. You mean? I mean, yeah.
No. He's a St. George's boy through and
See?
through. And
That's what's wrong with you.
Believe that, man. I believe that.
But so for instance, Blair Lambert, who everybody knows as a sailor, but how many would know him as being part of Silver City?
His name come up a few times.
Yeah.
How many people would know that he was right there with one of West Ham's greats? He is right there. He was Mr. Somerset playing Silver. He was in Silver City. Stevie Dickinson, well, everybody would be able to remember the fact that he was a damn good footballer, and pretty much anything that he turned his hand to, but he was a sailor first. It's so many people who have dual sports talents in Bermuda that we forget where our first loves are. So to answer the question about our heritage, you would be shocked when you look at the Shield family. You would be shocked when so say Greg Wilson. Everybody knows him now to be the farmer and you talented farmer that he is, but generationally, and his family, I believe, goes into the Shields family, which goes into like Maceo and there's like down the Lighborns and stuff like that. That these are families of generationals. I mean, even in my family, we go back generational and I'm not talking about generational as in 50 years. My great grandpa was Pilot Knight, who was a King's pilot, was in Marine and Ports, was a pilot. Now, my cousin, which was Dad's great nephew, Vernon Harrison, is also a pilot, Marine and Ports pilot. So these are generational of on-water experiences, on-water history of life. And so that narrative has to always be challenged when they're talking about Bermuda and the water. If you're Bermudian, you actually have salt water in your DNA, and you just have to check to see who your family is. So Elizabeth Christopher, everybody knows her as being a lawyer. Everybody knows the story of Pilot Jamie Darrell. How many know that is her direct relative? 200 plus years ago. So this is not a Bermudian who just came here. And so these are, when we talk about life's history and the King's pilots, they didn't have engines, and the race out there wasn't with oars, it was with sails. So the race was out there to the boat. And as much as Royal Hamilton does not, they particularly fussed about why they have the name amateur in their name. The fact remains is that they were so respectful of the black sailor that they considered them to be professionals. And in order to win races, they had to put amateur in it. So unless you was an amateur sailor, you couldn't race them, because such was the talent. Such was the talent that they were considered to be professionals. So this is our life history. This is nothing that we can say, oh, we happen to do it because. This is us. And so when it comes to sailing, and you asked the question where I came from, well, I used to race. I used to sail. I used to be competitive. And then a career got in the way. And we all know the career that I had before I retired. But before that, you couldn't get me on the boat. You couldn't get me from wanting to leave the house to be with my father, to be on Mini Yacht Club, well, East End Mini Yacht Club, Mid-Atlantic Sailboat Club, West End Sailboat Club. You could not get me to ever say no when I had the opportunity to get in the car and be up underneath my father. You know, so, and I never stopped. I never stopped watching him racing. I never stopped talking to him and say, hey, how you made out? And when it came to America's Cup, no matter what time, the day or night it was, we were up watching it. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning watching them racing off of Fremantle. We were up watching it. So for me, most people would talk about football. Earl could tell you about football games in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And, you know, yes, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I actually really didn't start paying attention to it until coming to the twilight of my career, where I actually had a lot more time on my hands and I could watch the games and actually learn. But I still couldn't get to you guys' level of stats because that's just not me. But let's talk about sailing. And each morning I'm up watching, I'm reading Scuttlebutt, and I'm reading, you know, I'm just online digesting and keeping abreast because that's my passion. And it's not because I took it up, it's because I like it. You know, one loves it. And I could never understand why no one didn't have that same level of passion, because it was part of Bermuda. You know, when I still to this day can't figure out why we are not being taught this in school. I can't. For the life of me, I can't. I mean, it was, we actually had the mayor of Cadiz, Spain, in Bermuda last week with his people, and they'll be doing they'll be hosting SailGP. I think it's in September. But we was on the boat, and I got his attention. I said, that's Spanish Point Boat Club. And they said, really? I said, yes. That's where the first Spanish man landed in Bermuda. His name was Venturilla. And we actually have a government workboat named after him, and is looking and fascinated that we have that history that ties us to them.
So interesting you say that, because I had a conversation with Shireen Outerbridge, who obviously worked alongside with the SailGP and the contingency. And one of the main things she had talked about was trying to have that connection. Okay, the sailing is one thing; they have that down pat. Obviously, it's a machine. I mean, the boat also, but the sport itself it's a machine. They can go from different city to different city, and you know, from it's clockwork. You know. But every city they go into is trying to engulf themselves within the culture, the sailing culture, and the culture within the particular city that they go to. My question is to you: sometimes we have to use events like this as the attention that these events bring. Now, marriage, our historic side, our heritage with this. How does that? How do you play a part, or do you play a part in it going forward in using events like this, so we can bring the highlights to our past, our highlights to our future, also to our future sailors you're talking? How do we use this event?
Well, you know, we've actually been using the event for the past 2 seasons. Bermuda conceptualized Adopt a Club. Bermuda has the website Cedar and Sail. It is a contracted item that we, meaning SailGP and the Bermuda Tourism Authority, it is a contracted item that we have to highlight and bring to the attention of the Bermuda public, our diverse, which is a fancy word for black, maritime history. You know, um, it is and so we actually have developed a web page called cedarandsail.bm. With the Adopter Club, we actually have a Seafarers tour that actually has QR codes. You download it on your phone and you go to you start where it starts. I believe it starts, if it doesn't start at the ferry terminal, it may start at Hamilton Princess and works its way east and works its way west. And in each stop on that Seafarers trail, one of which is at the ferry terminal, you download your QR code and it gives you historical facts. You Bastion Sailboat Club, Spanish Point Boat Club, Mid Atlantic Sailboat Club, Mini Yacht Club, and other clubs around the islands, as well as historical areas. They are highlighted and educate the public. It is a free app, and we encourage people to do it. So if you went to Mini Yacht Club and you saw the QR code and you put your phone on it and you download it, it will bring up who the Commodore, who the executive, history of the club, some of the sailors of the club. If you run on Cedar and Sail, we started off with Jamie Darrell. Yes, my father, Colin Clark, is there. Howard Lee is there. And we will be building out the histories of the clubs as well as it ties into the Comic Class web page. We have Spanish Point Boat Club also. And so that relationship with SailGP and the BTA, thereby Bermuda, is solid. It is something that they have actually even adopted in each country that they attend, which is the Adopter Club. That started with our relationship. That started with one of our deliverables, one of our demands. So Bastion Sailboat Club this year are the recipients and will be the recipients of solar panels on their roof, free. It is the hope that it will take care of 100% of their utility usage, and then any money saved can be used towards the junior program. That is something that has been paid for by SailGP. And the intention is, the future intent is to take care of the other community clubs in the same manner. Now, where else would you have that? Where else would you have that? So, the thing is, the beautiful part about SailGP is that they actually are community minded. They want to rebuild sailing, the youth sailing, as well as diversity and inclusion. That's why right now you see a very healthy, I want to say it's a minimum of 2 females per team. You have the young lady, Perez, on the U.S. team. She's the current national champion sailing in her class. I can't remember the boat right now, but she's Hawaiian. She's 18. She is actually a professional racer. Many of the females on the women on the teams are professional racers or successful racers, whether it be Olympians or world champions, gold medalists in their field in racing. And is it a question of time before we are there? Yes. But first of all, we have to show up. So, Jason, if you have any young kids,
Mark, I'm gonna have to.
I didn't get you just now, Mark. What was that?
I said if you have any young kids, get them in sailing. Start off with the Endeavor program, get them out into the community clubs, take advantage of any of the sailing courses and programs that any of the clubs have, and you'll be surprised how quickly, how far they can go with that.
Is there, you mentioned how far they can go, and that's something that a lot of parents are looking at with other sports, the education factor of it, right? Leading to a further education. Is there room for that in sailing? Is there a pathway for that in sailing?
Education?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, when I say absolutely, sailing, you can get scholarships for university. for the sailing program. But more importantly, when we look at the Olympic journeys of many of our sailors, unlike football and unlike cricket, the closest. All right, Stafford, exactly. That has some history. Let me just pivot towards a comment that Stephen Trotter just said. It not has some history. It started out as a sailboat club. And that sailboat club was actually at the ferry terminal. And then the club moved to where Vasco da Gama is, and now the building that they own on Reed Street, and then they migrated up into Warwick. So yes, glad someone will point it out. So where were we to? We were talking about pathways. Sailing can take you anywhere. You have Mustafa, you have Emily Nagel, you actually have Raquel Evans. Raquel Evans is the one that dominating in Australia and currently leading the team in Switzerland in the SSL, the Star Sailing League, in the RC44. Now, RC44 ironically stands for Russell Coutts 44 because he designed the boat. But sailing is one of those sports that takes you everywhere and takes you all places, and you'll be surprised how far it can take you. And from a health point of view, Glad is the oldest racer in the fleet. When Dad died, it was Glad's turn to become the mature person in the fleet. He is still winning and still placing in the top 3 in most events, most races. There's how to beat him. And Arl's out there many times, and he is still as competitive. I mean, Stevie is a different class, as Yoda, but Glad is something that you can do and keep you fit, keep you healthy and active right up until it's time for you to, to have more geritol and milk.
Let's go,
I knew
Sailor.
you would say that.
Come on, Sailor.
You knew I was going to say that. No, if I sound like a geek when it comes to sailing, it's okay, I qualify. But the most important thing, I heard them talking about, I think it was a carton earlier, and they're right. How do you get people involved? It's like you cannot get out of bed without seeing water. You can't get out of bed without seeing water, and people say it's expensive. Well, it can be, but Glad, and my boat, I think is almost 46 years old, and people still can't catch it. It is the boat. It's not a boat. You don't have to get a new boat to be fast or to be competitive. You just don't have to be. I mean, golf over a 10-year period will cost more than a good second-hand boat coming, including your sails, because it just, when it works out, when you pay your weekly, your course fees, your golf clubs, don't forget your clothes and everything else, when it adds up, if you add it up over a 10-year period, it will probably be more than what you put as far as invested in a good boat, good equipment, and it's just time and effort. And it is a good way to stay connected to your family, stay connected to your kids, as well as your community. But it's one of those things that is not a today sport. It is a yesterday, today, and tomorrow sport. So, for instance, right now, both my daughter and my granddaughter have started their journey with sailing. My granddaughter was racing over the weekend on both Saturday and Sunday, representing Mini Yacht Club. And my daughter will be also on that journey this summer. She started in the Endeavor program. She'll finish it, and then she'll go into the other training, the other clubs to just learn how to race. And then we'll push her into the other classes. It is about a lifestyle choice, but it's also a choice. You don't have to worry about certain things, you got an eye full of salt. You're not hanging out that night. You don't have to worry about being beat on the street after a day on the water. You just don't.
Too many aches and pains.
Yeah. You got the aches and pains. the backs, the chest, the stomach, the thighs, the calves, you hurt. But it's a good hurt. It's a lifestyle, you know. So it's I don't know. Maybe I talk too much when it comes to sailing, but such is my passion when it comes to it. Such is my love affair with it.
Well, what I intend to do is invite you back, Mark, as we get into the local sailing seasons, because obviously, as Jason has referred to, you know, people need to be educated on you know, the local side. I think it's missed, and it gets caught up when an event like SailGP comes, but so many people are caught up in watching or wanting to see the fast boat. They don't worry about the history that we have here, and I think that's where we lose a lot of that. And I think that it's going to be important that that message is repeated constantly.
And okay, so the first Comet races will be Sunday at Mini Yacht Club.
Yes.
First horn is at 11:25. With the first race at 11:30. And it's 3 races.
Only line is only line. If you're not on the line,
and to give you a little bit of history, my parents used to punish me by saying that I had to go to church before I actually went down to Mini to race. And so I would go to the early service at St. John's and run to the bus stop and be changing on the bus. And there, you know, would be waiting for me to rig the boat, because that was part of my punishment. If we was late on the starting line, it was my fault.
Well, Jay, you know why I said it. You know why I did
Huh? What was that?
You need to go to church.
I went to the church that had the shortest service. Ed would sneak out, but I technically went to church. And you know, and that's what I'm talking about. How, you know, people laugh, and Earl knows your story, because you know, the only reason they would be late because I done something stupid. I had to be punished, and I had to suffer the consequences of making us late on the course. And so, you know, it's like when I say to you that yes, 11:25 is the first horn, 11:30 is the start. You know, we actually have the long distance race coming up, Heroes Weekend, on the Monday, and that is actually the oldest documented race named after a black man in the world. And that, I mean, party aside for Heroes Weekend, that's cause for celebration by coming out and supporting the class. This year is the 85th anniversary of the IOD and the Comet in Bermuda. And the Comet, the IOD was designed after a local boat called the Saga, however you want to pronounce it, SAGA, that was owned by the Trimmingham family. But the IOD is a class that's a Russell Coots has won in. I want to say that, well, I know Nathan Otteridge has raced in. I want to say, you know, many of the America's Cup and now SailGP sailors have won world championships or match racing championships or the Gold Cup in Bermuda in that IOD. So
they just race week a few weeks ago.
Yes, beginning of the month. And so each time when you see the King, I think it's the King Edward Gold Cup in October, that is one of the oldest racing trophies. If it's not as old as the America's Cup, it might be older or just under. That's history again. And that trophy was donated by the King to them. So we have so much beautiful history that's around sailing that you wonder why. And I keep on saying it. You wonder why not enough people know this, and why are they forgetting it? When Jason, I must confess, I'm pretty sure you're younger than Earl and I.
Oh yes.
But during when we were in high school, they used to, in woodworking class, including Work Academy, where I went, building the mirror dinghy in woodworking class that was then used to race amongst the schools. And so today, all of a sudden they're touting these magical words of STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and they also now include A as an art. So some people say STEM, others say STEAM, but there's nothing magical about that. Ricky Souza, RMS Construction, or I think that's got that right. He went Work Academy, and he was one of those ones who built that mirror dinghy. Such was his skill. And look where he is today, using that STEM technology. Look where it took him into, and many people, many people were so talented. I mean, you have carpenters. Now, well, mind you, Heath Fogo is generational because his father was a master carpenter, still is. But that's what he does anyway. That's what he did anyway. And he's still in the sailing world. He races every Wednesday night. His race committee during the weekends and for the comic class. But there's many examples of sailing and using that as far as educational opportunities, teaching opportunities, as well as the past and now the future. It's one of the things that SailGP does with the Endeavor or with the Inspire program is teach them how to work with carbon fiber.
Sure.
Now, the more times that SailGP are here, the more talent that in that arena, and they actually have other Bermudians who are there teaching and on the technical staff. When will we have a center here that people could actually repair boats of carbon fiber or repair as well as build with it? Those are the things that I could see coming down the pipeline.
Sure. Well, again, we're going to have to invite you back because clearly there's a lot more to be said in this sport and this island. So just to educate people on this sailing history of this island and where we can go if we kind of come together. And we look forward to, as you've already indicated, the start of the comic sailing season this weekend. We're well into the Wednesday night sailing as well. So, it's all about being on the water. Summertime, Jay. Come hang outside of a boat.
Let's see what the sea legs are like. Let's see what the sea legs are
like. I'm good, man.
We'll carry a fishing line just in case we want to troll.
Man, look, I used to swallow a lot of salt water sunfish, man. Come on now.
Okay. Listen, the thing is, Earl's out there at least 2-3 times a month. I don't see you.
Oh, well, I go to other places. We can't be all the same place at the same time.
Okay.
Let's leave that right there.
The invitation is standing.
Sure.
Right, I'll see you soon.
Right,
All
right.
Well, folks, thank you for joining this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. We'll be back next week with another edition on Wednesday night. Enjoy your night. Thank you, Mark.
All right. You take care now. All right. Cool.